Welcome back, everyone. The Spotlight of Northfield Village, and today I'm here with John Zolgus, our new Chief of Police in Northfield Village.
Good evening, Mayor.
How are you, John?
I'm very well.
Good. So how does it feel to be the new Chief of Northfield Village?
It feels really good. It's been about 24 years in the making as of yesterday, which was my anniversary date being employed when I started with the village in September 22nd, 1993. So it feels good.
Yeah. So how long have you been with the Northfield Village Police Department? I know you kind of already touched on that, but I'm going to ask you anyways.
Yeah, it's been, I started part-time in 1993 and then went full-time in 1997 till here we are today.
Who was chief back then?
Don Barney was the chief.
And how many chiefs have you been through?
Well, there was Don Barney, Jim Varga, and Mark Wentz.
And Varga, he was here for how long?
Jim started, as far as chief, he was chief for about 4 years or so, right around there. But Jim had been here since the mid-'80s, I believe, or late '80s.
And how long did you serve under Barney?
Since 1993 to about 1997-ish. 1997.
And who was mayor when you first started?
Carmen Consolo.
And how'd you like working for Carmen?
Oh, Carmen was a great guy to work for.
But not as good as me, right?
No, absolutely not. No.
So what year did you become sergeant?
I became a sergeant in 2004, February.
Okay. So after nearly 6 months of being the officer in charge, did you think the promotion would occur?
I knew at some point it would occur. It was just a matter of time, you know, to prove myself that I can run the department. And being here as long as I have been, it's, you know, I guess I could go out and say kind of being chief is easy. It's managing the people. That's the challenge, because you have 18, 19 guys on the department, and each one has a different personality, you know, especially millennials, which a little bit more to deal with, but we're handling it.
How do you feel about this regionalization concept that's been bantered around between all the Nordonia Hills communities?
You know, and we've thought about it, and I've talked to Lieutenant Mackey about it, and I've talked to you about it on occasion. You know, a couple years ago, we looked into regionalization with the Chagrin Valley Dispatch in Bedford.
Yep.
We did go take a look at that. You know, my personal feeling is, and I know Lieutenant Mackey feels the same way, that, you know, at this point, we're not interested in it. What we do with Macedonia and how we operate with them, because we deal with the same people, the same school district, you know, they've gotten to know, their dispatchers have gotten to know our residents by voice on the telephone, the whole mutual aid. You know, if we were to go to a Chagrin Valley dispatch and Macedonia needed a mutual aid for something, it might take longer to get a hold of us because it's a whole different radio system. You know, their dispatcher would have to call over to that if we don't have the right car radios. You know, I've talked to John Golden and Vince Jakupovich about it too, and I don't, from what I understand, that they're not interested in a regionalization, is because there was some talk of going in with Hudson, Twinsburg, Macedonia, Boston Heights, I believe, Aurora, and possibly Streetsboro, and some others, and running it out of the Cleveland Clinic Hospital, I believe, in Twinsburg. But that, you know, that all the talks fell through on that. I feel that we're pretty self-sufficient here in what we're doing. You know, we have a good working relationship with, you know, Macedonia Police, Sagamore Police, Boston Heights Police, Oakwood, you know, everyone that's right around us. So at this point, I don't, you know, to me, I wouldn't look at regionalizing right now.
You know, and when I look at this, you know, this feasibility study that they want to do, I look at it like, okay, my service department, I have a wonderful service department, I have a wonderful police department, and I have a wonderful fire department. How much better can we get?
Well, you know, that's just it. You have to look at, I think, you know, what you want, what your needs are.
You know? I mean, could you expand your borders? And let's face it, hey, our run times for the fire department go up. We're gaining more surface area. I mean, there's just nothing that tells me right now that we should combine.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you on that. As far from what I see, you know, and I've been here for such a long period of time, you know, it comes under the old saying that if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know, and right now we don't have any issues. We love our dispatch the way it is
Listen,
right now.
Someone's going to have to come into me and have a really good reason and have it all outlined why we should do this. Because, I mean, once it's gone, it's gone.
Well, and you look at what happened in, you know, Northfield Center and Sagamore Hills between the fire district. I mean, that lasted 5 years, I believe it was, and then that went defunct. What happens if, you know, you have issues when you combine all these services? Then what do? Do you break off and go back and you have a mess on trying to divvy up the equipment again, or do you form a new group? You know, once again, you know, to me, if it's not broke, you know, don't try to fix it.
You know, and I can't say I disagree with you there, you know, because I'm looking at everything that we do in this community, and, you know, is combining going to make it worse? You know, we've seen with the fire department that, yes, it wasn't working in our favor.
Right.
Cost
Right.
and everything.
Right. Right.
So
And you have to look at the response times. You know, when you start combining, you know, you start combining departments and you're combining personnel. Well, then you also look at, okay, well, you know, Northfield has 18 cops. You know, Macedonia, we don't need 18 cops. You know, so, you know, I'm just not, you know, there's nothing that says to me that we should look at it right now, unless, like you said, somebody
gives us a damn good reason not
yes,
to.
right, correct. Yeah,
Or two,
right.
you know.
Yeah, we're handling it.
So tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I moved to Macedonia in 1970, you know, with my parents. I went through Macedonia Elementary School when it was around, then to Nordonia Junior High, they called it back then, and Nordonia High School. Graduated, been in the community pretty much all my life. I was 3 years old when I moved here.
What year did you graduate?
In 1986.
1986. I was 6 years old.
So, yeah, so I'm older than you, quite older than you.
Okay. So how are you and Lieutenant Mackey since all this has occurred?
But, you know, when it all started, me and Jamie, I mean, I started in 1993. Jamie started in 1994, I believe it was. You know, we grew up through the ranks together. We've been friends since probably those days back, going back to Macedonia Elementary. You got to figure, right around 43 years, 45 years. We sat down and, you know, we talked about, you know, if who gets what, you know, what would happen. And me and Jamie, you know, we get together and work together just fine. You know, we don't have any issues. If I may take a page out of Jamie's book, he always says that, John, whatever happens, I want to leave this place better than when I found it. And, you know, I will, and so will he. So,
Now, were you here longer than Jamie's been here?
yeah, by about a year and a couple of months, actually.
And you were part-time.
Yes,
And you came on full-time together, correct?
together in 1997.
Okay. So, Northfield Village went nearly almost a year without a police chief, okay? What changes do you plan to implement to
You
the
know,
department?
Some changes we've already made. We've always been on the right path of what we're doing. We just need to fine tune a lot of the things. So we've always been there. We have changed our report management system already.
TAC program?
Yes, which myself and Lieutenant Mackey, you know, that's something we've always said we would go to. We've also have been writing a new policies and procedures manual through Lexipol, which definitely needed to be updated. And we're going to have some more things that are coming up that we're going to do. We're going to get guys more involved in what goes on a day-to-day basis instead of relying on just a few couple people.
Okay. Now, the drug epidemic in Nordonia Hills. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. What do you plan to do with that?
Well, you know, and I've talked to Lieutenant Mackey about it. We've talked to other agencies about it, and I think our plan is to get other agencies involved and collaborate on what we can do together. Without saying too much, that's going to be our sort of our plan for the future. It's also at some point to educate the people who don't do drugs from starting to do the drugs. I think that's a big key if we could cut down on that kind of stuff. But we'll have some stuff in the works in the future.
That sounds good, John, because I know when I was interviewing, this is one of my
Yes.
biggest things that I wanted to bring forth, and I want something to happen with this, because I don't think there's any way that we're going to stop this, but we can at least try to help bring it to a stop.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's a horrible thing, and many families are losing family members because of these drugs.
It is. I have seen kids that I have started here in 1993, were just little kids. I have seen them overdose and not make it.
It's a sad thing. I
Right.
mean, drugs hit my family.
Right.
I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible thing that's going on
Right.
in this country and in this world.
Yes.
So I'm glad that I have someone like you in place that's going to take the initiative to actually begin that process with trying to help the drug problem. So what do you plan to do differently than the previous chief?
You know, like I mentioned before, we've always been on a good path. We just need to fine tune some things. One of the big things that I'm into is training. I feel that in the past we haven't done enough training.
It's very important, right? I agree
It
with
is,
you.
especially around the shooting end of it. You know, I just sent a guy to the Alliance Shoot House School. He became certified as an instructor in that, so we could use the Alliance Shoot House. I also sent 2 officers this past summer to a conference in Sandusky where they both became instructors for the pepper spray, because we needed a new instructor on that, and they went to class for some other things. It was a week-long conference. I got 2 guys this week that are going to CIT training, which is that crisis intervention team, to help deal with the mentally handicapped, schizophrenics, paranoia, and that kind of stuff. I also have 2 guys that are going to be going to become instructors this week for handcuffing and Aspeton school, so they can.
And how are the guys with all this change? I mean, how are they
They're
coming along?
They're good with it. You know, a lot of the guys want to go to trainings. You know, and a lot of the trainings aren't free. Pretty much the majority of them, but there are free trainings. We're going to pay for some, but it's in the budget. You know, so we're going to use it up and get these guys trained.
Now, are the guys coming up to you and saying, "Hey, Chief, I want to go to this class. I want to do this. I know there's also talk about a canine unit. I also know there's talk about another bike unit. So, give me a little input on what the guys think about these programs."
Well, the guys are definitely into training. You know, we're going to be sending some guys to some drug interdiction schools. You know, I told them if there's a training you're interested in, you want to go to, send me an email. You know, that's the best way to put it out to them. If they're interested in it, whether it's free, whether it's paid training, whatever. And the guys have sent me, even before this final decision with council, the guys have already approached me about going to trainings, and we're going to do what we can.
And John, you know what I've been looking at. I want the guys to drive around. I want them to get out of the car. I want them to spend time with the residents. I really want them to interact with everyone in town. And have you brought this to their attention, and how do they feel about this?
Yeah, we've had talks, with certain officers, especially afternoon shift officers, because they see a lot of the kids after school playing in the playgrounds. And actually, we do have a couple officers that have played basketball with the kids at Magnolia Park.
And I think that's great because,
Right.
I don't want to be afraid of our cops. I don't want to be afraid to come to you guys
Right.
and say, "Hey, there's a problem here."
And their attitude is good towards it. They don't mind doing that stuff.
That's good. That's good. Because we've had a lot of problems, with, just kids just, not wanting to come to you. I mean, I don't know if they're afraid. I just feel like it's, they don't know you.
Well, yeah. It's just like when you see the mother in the grocery store, the father in the grocery store, who kids misbehaving, and they tell the child, "Look, there's a policeman. If you misbehave, I'm going to take you to that policeman." So right away they have that fear of, policemen are bad.
Yeah.
So if we can get away from that kind of mentality, and you want the kids to come up to a policeman when they see him, talk to him, tell them if something's going on, if they have a problem,
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
And I just want the public to know that yourself and Jamie were very well qualified for the position, both of you. And, if I could put both of you together, you'd make the absolute perfect chief.
Right.
Perfect chief. But I also think that it's great to have you, and you both deserve the top 2 spots in the department.
Right.
But I do definitely want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
It's been a long time coming.
24 years.
And I definitely think you deserve it, John.
Well, thank you.
Is there anything else that you would like to say to the public?
Well, I'd like to thank, Mayor and Council for having their trust in me and their faith, and standing behind me. And, things aren't going to happen overnight. There are certain, changes within the department we need to make as far as paperwork-wise, streamlining this, streamlining that, to make things easier for the officers to stay more on the road instead of sitting down at the station and doing reports. So I would just like to, once again, to thank them and yourself for standing behind me.
Here's another thing, John. How are the neighboring communities taking to you being the chief?
They're fine. I have a good relationship with Chief Golden and Lieutenant Yakupovich in Macedonia. I've known those guys for, my whole career here, and even longer with Vince Yakupovich, as we went to school together. He's a little bit younger than I am. Chief Thelman, who just retired in Walton Hills, I was pretty close with him, and now the chief there, Stan Jaworski, I've known him for a long time, and the sergeants over there. Sagamore Hills, the same thing. So it's a good relationship.
One more thing, because I keep coming up with these questions, but everything that's happening at the Hard Rock, what do you see changing within the department when we get a hotel?
I think that the additional personnel, one of my plans for the future of our department is to move towards more of a full-time department and rely less on part-time officers. When I took over March 1st, we ran into a problem where we had part-time officers that were working 32 hours, 40 hours a week, and all of a sudden they left to get full-time positions elsewhere. And, we were stuck with huge holes on the schedule. Sergeant Urbanowitz went out on a medical situation. So, we were short 120 hours a week on the schedule, which would create a lot of overtime. And I think that in the future, if we start gearing ourselves towards a more full-time department, go that route, especially with the addition of the hotel, if they make it 3 stories, 4 stories, 5 stories, have 300 rooms, 500 rooms, our business will increase.
Do you think that's the time to get into the K-9 unit, or it's hard to tell right now?
Well, actually, I'm hoping to get into the K-9 unit quicker than that. I think the hotel may be here in, 2 years, 3 years. If we could get around to it next year, I'd really like to. We have an officer right now who's a part-timer, he's a K-9 officer full-time in another department, which, maybe at some point we can get him to come over, maybe. But we'll see.
But people don't understand what's involved with that. I mean, there's training of that dog, there's the medical bills of that dog, there's the feeding of that dog, there's the, there's multiple things that has to happen in this thing. I mean, people just think, oh, you get a dog and here it is. That's definitely not the case.
No, it's not. I mean, you have to have a special car for it. The equipment on the inside of the car is different. We've already been in contact with Dr. Redmond from Northfield Vet Hospital. He's willing to meet with us and help us out as far as vet needs. Food-wise, too, we have somebody else that was willing to help us out with the food. So there's ways to get around and eliminate some of the costs. It's still an expensive cost, especially the cost of the dog. This gentleman...
Transforming a car?
Transforming the car. This gentleman that we have right now, he owns his own dog. So that would save us a considerable amount of money there. But it's
because a dog's
training.
What, $12,000?
Yeah, about $12,000, and that usually includes all the training and everything for the officer, which I believe the training is about 6 to 8 weeks long.
And these dogs normally come from where? Isn't it like Slovakia or something like that?
It all depends where you want to get it from. You can get them from Germany, you can get them from Belgium. I'm not too knowledgeable on where they all come from, but
right. We'll figure it out.
Yes, we will.
As time goes on.
Yes, we will.
You know what, John? I've enjoyed talking with you here today, and I just wish you the best of luck.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Pleasure.